What a wonderful time of year. It's kind of like this is the time of year when the church really puts on its best. The sanctuary is decorated and it's a beautiful, elegant sanctuary, and we're preparing for the coming of Christmas. Preparing, and everything, it's almost like everything about us, all of the energy that is just surrounding us is kind of culminating with the coming of Christmas. There's an anticipation that something is building. Shortly after Thanksgiving, went out to pick up the newspaper. And I don't know if you've seen this or not, or you've had this, but when we went out the newspaper, we actually had two big, thick newspapers. One of them was about events happening in our community, and the other one was an extra insert of all of the stuff that you can now buy getting ready for Christmas. It was like, here's what's really happening, but here's all the stuff that you need. There's a sense about Christmas that it's a kind of a culmination, but part of our lives have kind of gotten skewed a little bit. When you talk to people and you talk to the kids and you ask them about Christmas, don't most of them think about Christmas in terms of what you can buy for it, what you want, what you need, what you're going to put under a tree? We gather during Advent to think about it differently, to think about what Christmas is really about, what God is offering to all of us that often passes us by because it's been hijacked from us. It's been taken by the commercialism of everything that you can see. And so we thought we would get together, and for the next 4 weeks we're going to talk about this very simple theme. It's a boy. That's why we're here. That's what draws us together. That's why we exist as a church. That's why our ministries do what we're doing. And we thought maybe because we've been here a little while, I wanted to know if we could have fun this Christmas. If you're willing to be a part of an experiment, to do something a little out of the ordinary. See, most people that you live around think that they understand Christmas. They've got it all figured out. They know that the bills are going to come in January because they're going to spend too much, and the kids are going to be overwhelmed by the things that they want. And I thought, how can we change that mindset? How can we as a church, can we just invite them to come? Well, yeah, I hope that you're doing that. But how do we begin to infect people with some good spirit of what God is doing? And so that's really where the genesis of the idea came from. We had somebody that made a contribution. Now, think about this for just a minute. Think about your own life. When do you see one of these pop up in somebody's yard? Usually after 9 months of waiting and anticipation, of eager. It's a way of proclaiming to the community that something profoundly personal has happened to you, that your life is never going to be the same, and you want to go public with it. You want everybody to know about it. You're so excited, you just want everybody to rejoice with you. And when that happens, people around you kind of get a smile on their face because they know something exciting has happened in your life. And I thought, now, what would happen if the people, the families at Mount Pleasant put one of these in their yard? And we went out and there's 150 of these. Now imagine if all of a sudden around our community 150 of these just started popping up. Now, it's kind of interesting. I got some really strange looks at the early service from some of the older families of what would people think? And that's exactly the point. What would they think? Well, they might say, I bet something profoundly personal has happened to them. And they want everybody to know about it, and they're excited. And all of a sudden, the conversation begins to change. What is happening? They see this over and over again, and people that are willing to go out and say, it's not about what you put on the credit card. It's about what's in your heart that matters. So I'm hoping that you'll pick one up, that you'll risk a little bit, risk looking a little silly, but put one in your yard in order to make a difference, in order to let somebody know, this season that we're in, it's really about a boy and about the difference that he made in the lives of the people that he encountered. And it's also about the difference that he made in our lives and what draws us here this morning. It's a boy. But then I began to think about the gospel writers. And I said, okay, so let's imagine that we say, it's a boy. Each of the gospel writers tell us a story about different people that were impacted by that little phrase, it's a boy. Some with great joy, and some not so much so. And I wonder this morning, as we go through this journey, how will it affect you? How does it affect you? What impact is it going to have in your life? Sometimes we all go through our lives where we're waiting for God to deliver. We're waiting for the promises to come true in our lives. We're waiting for something to change. And sometimes that waiting can go on for a long time, and we're left wondering whether it has passed us by. This morning we're going to talk about the impact that little phrase, it's a boy, had on the life of Zachariah and Elizabeth. Maybe you probably know that Elizabeth, for many years, they had tried to conceive but were unable to. And finally, maybe they'd kind of given up hope. And I wonder sometimes about us as a church or people that you live around. Have they given up hope? Have they stopped believing that good things can happen to people like us? Are they just kind of going through the motions? This Christmas will be like last Christmas. Or something special about to be born in your life? And so this morning we're going to talk about God's timing. Have you ever struggled with God's timing? Have you ever struggled with waiting? We all have to wait. We have to wait at the doctor's office. We have to wait at traffic signs. And sometimes we have to wait while we're in line at the checkout. You've got a whole cart full of stuff, and somebody else is just taking forever to get through. But we all have to wait. There's those moments of frustration that happen in our lives. Frustration comes when there's something that is out of your control, will interfere with your goals or your plans, or something that you want to do in life, but it's just hurry up and wait. And waiting is really hard work. I love this quote by Elizabeth Elliot. She said, waiting on God requires the willingness to bear uncertainty, to carry within oneself the unanswered question, lifting the heart to God about it whenever it intrudes upon one's thought. Do you struggle with that the way I do? To carry the unanswered questions, to ask, but there is no answer. Why is it not working out the way I had wanted it to? To bear the burden of the unknown, the uncertainty, to trust God with what you don't understand, but to trust that God has your best intentions. This morning, our message about Zachariah and Elizabeth is probably for somebody in this congregation, in your community, that has been waiting for a change in their life. Maybe a relationship to change, maybe a connection that has been broken, saying, God, when will the prodigal in my life return? When will what is broken be mended and made whole? When will I find the passion and the purpose that I've been longing for my whole life? When will that finally arrive? For 400 years, from the time of the prophet Malachi until the time of Jesus, until Matthew, there had been silence. There hadn't been any word from God. Maybe God had given up on them. And sometimes we feel that too. Maybe God has given up on us. And so if you're in that boat, if you feel like maybe you don't understand what the future has, maybe you're uncertain where you're going next, then Zachariah and Elizabeth have something that they want to share with you, I hope, this morning. I'm going to be reading this morning from Luke's Gospel, the first chapter, beginning with the 5th verse. Now, in the time of Herod, king of Judea, there was a priest named Zachariah who belonged to the priestly division of Abijah. His wife Elizabeth was also a descendant of Aaron. Both of them were righteous in the sight of God, observing the Lord's commandments and decrees blamelessly. But they were childless because Elizabeth was not able to conceive, and they were both very old. Once, when Zechariah's division was on duty, he was serving as priest before God. He was chosen by lot, according to the customs of the priesthood, to go into the temple of the Lord and to burn incense. And when the time for the burning of incense came, all the assembled worshipers were praying outside. Then an angel of the Lord appeared to him, standing at the right side of the altar of incense. When Zechariah saw him, he was startled and was gripped with fear. But the angel said to him, "Do not be afraid, Zechariah. Your prayer has been heard. Your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you will call him John. He will be a joy and a delight to you, and many will rejoice of his birth. For he will be great in the sight of the Lord. He is never to take wine or other fermented drink, and he will be filled with the Holy Spirit even before he is born. He will bring back many of the people from Israel to the Lord their God, and he will go on before the Lord in the spirit and power of Elijah, to turn the hearts of the parents to their children, and the disobedient to the wisdom of the righteous, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord." Zechariah asked the angel, "How can I be sure of this? I am an old man, and my wife is well along in years." The angel said to him, "I am Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God, and I have been sent to speak to you and to tell you the good news. And now you will be silent and not able to speak until this happens, because you did not believe my words, which will come true at their appointed time." Meanwhile, the people were waiting for Zechariah and wondered why he stayed so long in the temple. When he came out, he could not speak to them. They recognized that he had seen a vision in the temple, for he kept making a sign to them, but remained unable to speak. When his time of service was completed, he returned home, and his wife Elizabeth became pregnant and for 5 months remained in seclusion. "The Lord has done this for me," she said. "In these days he has shown his favor and taken away my disgrace among the people." This is the word of God for the people of God. It's an amazing story, the story of Zechariah and Elizabeth. Well along in years. In that culture, for a woman to be able to give birth meant the continuation of the family line. It was a sense of being blessed, that God's favor had rested upon her. So in Elizabeth's case, Elizabeth was not able to conceive. And so for her, we find at the end of her story, she says, "The Lord has shown favor and taken away my disgrace." You see, oftentimes our struggle is with our own identity, about who we are, surrounded by so many. In our culture, it's about what we do that identifies who we are. We live today in a culture that is really being dominated much more by addictions and by the drug culture, primarily, I think, because we live in what is often called a shaming culture. We live in a world where what you do identifies who you are on the inside and how you see yourself. You see, the difference really is that if you had made a mistake, it depends on how you reflect on a mistake that you've made. Have you ever made a little boo-boo and you say, "Now, that was stupid. That was dumb. I wonder why that happened"? That is a problem that you're identifying. But there'll be some people that you'll know and say, "Boy, I was really dumb to do that." That's a shaming culture. It is an identification about who you are and about how you see yourself. In our world today, we're much more likely to identify and label people by the mistakes that they've made, or that you have people that will identify in some mistake or some brokenness in their life. They own it, and they feel that everybody else sees them by that label. At the very end of this passage, it's Elizabeth that says, "God has taken away my disgrace." Elizabeth, while well along in years, has lived a life of disgrace in her own mind. It tells us earlier that she and Zechariah are blameless, doing what is right in the Lord's eyes. It isn't because she's being punished, it's just sometimes that's the way life is. And so for many years, she's waited for the Lord to bless her in some way, to give her the child. And I wonder if there comes a point in our lives where in our culture, we often just give up hope. We don't believe that it's ever going to work out for people like us, or that things are ever going to turn out the way we want. If that's where you are, or that you know somebody in there, then the story of Advent and the story of Elizabeth and Zechariah is for you, because God has not given up on you. God has not stopped believing, but it is in God's timing that we must rest. We must believe in God's goodness that it will work out. Not always the way you envision, but God is always at work in your life. Do you believe this morning that God still has a purpose and a plan for you? Or are you one of those rare people that says, nope, God just can't use me? You know where I see this the most in most churches? If you were to take a walk around, as Jason comes up and he's playing the songs and people are here singing, if you were to just walk around, you would hear some of the most angelic voices that there were. People singing joyfully. But if I were to come and say, how about you come up and join us? Oh no, I couldn't do that. What would people say? I can't do, because you live in a shaming culture. You are afraid of what people will say. That's the world in which Jesus was born, in order to liberate people just like you. Not those people out there, people sitting right here. Don't be ashamed any longer. Be willing to stand up for what you know to be true. Jesus came into a shaming culture of Elizabeth and Zechariah in order to liberate them. Do you think that Elizabeth was ashamed to put a yard sign in her yard? I don't think so. I think she wanted everybody to know. I think she was excited that God was using somebody like her, that God hadn't given up. Why do you think Luke includes this? For people like us, learn their story. We live in a shaming culture. We also find that waiting for us is countercultural. Have you ever noticed that with technology? I'm not that old, but I'm older. I remember a time when you actually had to get up and turn the knob on the TV. Have any of you remember that? Do you remember those days? Can you ever imagine going back to those days? Can somebody turn the knob and see what else is on? We live in a world now where people will record a show in order to watch it quickly, to cut through the commercials, so that we can only get to the meat of what we want. Waiting is not in our DNA, and as a result, we miss probably 90% of what God is trying to do. I heard a great quote that once said, "Those that do not wait on God do not wait long." Waiting on God means you have to lose control. You do not get to set the timetable. God is inviting you to trust in Him more. Our culture is one of speed and doing it quickly. Now, our internet, everything is about going, and our attention span is dropping dramatically. I have a real quick one for you. How many of you have ever heard of John Wesley? Yeah, every hand goes up. John Wesley, kind of the founding father of the United Methodist Church, used to give 3-hour sermons that would have 38 to 39 points to his sermon. How many of you would be able to sit through a 3-hour sermon that had 38 or 39 points? Just mentally, you cannot absorb that kind. But for the people of that day, that was the normal. That's what they were used to. That's what they were accustomed to. Our attention span has dropped so dramatically. So why is it that God invites us to wait? Why is waiting so critical? Because waiting is about preparation. It's about believing that the good is about to come to prepare. What do most people do whenever they realize that they're pregnant and they begin planning? They begin going through naming books. They begin getting a nursery together. They begin the preparation. They begin to be prepared for what God is doing. They recognize that good things are about to happen. Why do we celebrate Advent? Because we're preparing for the coming. Advent, you're probably aware, is a Latin word, adventus, which means the coming. So what are we doing? We're preparing for the coming. We're preparing for his arrival, and it allows us to have the time to prepare inwardly as well as outwardly. Waiting is also about attentiveness. Have you ever heard of a pregnant pause? It draws you in. Something is about to happen. Be still. Be quiet. And let it unfold in its own way. Don't force it. Don't make a big deal. See what God is about to do. Be attentive. And finally, it's about dependency. There's some things that you cannot control. You don't get to control most of what happens in your life. Waiting reminds you of that rhythm that happens in your life. God is in control, not you. And that's our fundamental process of our church. We don't get to set the agenda. We discern where God is going, and we follow. That's part of who we are. We live in a countercultural world. And finally, Advent, the hope that we find is going to be hard work. This is not easy. If you thought that Advent was just about the songs and the music and the fun, it's hard work. It requires you to be attentive, to be disciplined, to be courageous. So let's talk about what can we do to allow ourselves to do the work of being patient, of waiting. The first thing that I want to recommend to you is that you stay connected in worship. Worship is the antidote for worry. Many people are worried about the future, the economy, their jobs, relationships, and many people are worried about their health. Worship surrounds us saying, God is still at work. Even though you can't see what is happening, there are things that are, forces that are at work that are still bringing it about. How many of you doubt that spring is going to come? Spring is going to come. I can't see how it's going to unfold, but I know it's going to come. I believe it's going to unfold in ways that are beyond. When you gather in a community and you sing songs, it encourages you to stay the course, to believe that God is still active and still at work in your life, to rejoice in God's presence in a worshipful environment among other people that are still encouraging and inspiring. The number one thing is to stay in worship. Act on what you know to be true. Zechariah and Elizabeth did not give up. It tells us that the connection that was necessary for Zechariah happened while he was still fulfilling the duties of his priesthood, still going through his commitment to his God. Sometimes our greatest tests in life, our greatest desire for perseverance is going to come when we're at the end of our rope. And Zechariah and Elizabeth still held true to their basic beliefs. Do what you can do that you know is right to do. Continue to fulfill the right path because God is still working out, perhaps unseen, perhaps beyond our ability to perceive what is happening, but God is still bringing it about in your life. Even though you can't see the process and the path. There's so many people that often come and say, can you give me a list of things to do? We like to-do lists. We like things to be clear. We love when you go to the mall and the mall says, here you are with that little red dot, and here's how you get to where you want to go. Sometimes God says, follow my voice that only you can hear. Do what you have to do. Instruct yourself in God's ways, the way things work. How does God work through other people? How does he work through David or Moses, through Mary or Elizabeth? How have other people impacted their lives? How did they trust God in the midst of the chaos? And learn all that you can. And finally, trust that God is still at work. The best proof of love is to trust. The best proof of knowing that God is still in your corner is to never give up that hope. Maybe this is the Christmas that's going to happen for you. So that's why I want to invite you, the people that are around you, the families to impact you, to grab a sign and put it in your yard and let people know. Guess what, folks? If you think that you've given up hope, you don't think it's going to happen for you, you don't think that your life matters, I want to tell you, it's a boy. And things will never be the same again. It's a boy. It's going to impact your life in ways you can't even yet imagine. It's going to impact the world around you in ways that are going to change lives forever. And if we as one voice can get out into public and say, it's not just a time on the calendar, it's an attitude, it's a way of living each day, somebody that you know, their life will be impacted, and it just might be yours. Let's pray. Father, we invite you to come into our lives, to be born anew by granting us hope, to restore us to the full experience of your presence. We pray, Father, for those that are hurting this morning, those that have kind of given up hope and just don't believe that it's going to be in their future. Father, speak to them. Send your angel Gabriel, if necessary, to shake their world and to draw them close to your side. But above all, use your church to get out the message that you have come, that you will come again, and that you are here with us now. Bless them, surround them, and keep them. In Jesus' name, amen.
Will you stand with us for our closing hymn?